The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Amateur Traveler, episode 870. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about meter maids and manta rays and surf clubs, lifesavers, lorikeets, and theme parks as we go to the Gold Coast of Queensland. This is Chris Christensen from the Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about the Gold Coast of Queensland. I'd like to welcome back to the show Leanne and Lyle McCabe, who have come to talk to us about the Gold Coast of Queensland. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Nice to be back.
I say welcome back. They were on the show relatively recently, episode 819, traveling to Asturias, Spain, but this time we're a little closer to home for you.
That's correct, yeah. We're just down the road from where we live to the Gold Coast.
Excellent. So you live in the
Sunshine Coast?
On the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, we live at Sunshine Coast, that's correct. And we're about an hour from Brisbane, and then the Gold Coast is about 45 minutes from there. So it's basically on the border of New South Wales.
And put it on the map for those of us who don't have an Australia map memorized in our heads here.
It's on the east coast of Australia, almost smack bang in the middle.
And why should someone go to the Gold Coast of Australia?
Lots of reasons, really, isn't there?
Yeah.
We go for lots of different reasons, but I guess the main one would be the stunning beaches. And I know lots of places have stunning beaches, but this would have to, I think, be Australia's best strip of beaches, and it's the best surfing beach area in Australia. It has a really interesting nightlife too. It's quite young nightlife, but some great sort of things that we're going to talk about later. It's the nature. It's right there at the mountains as well, and it's, what would you say, like adventure?
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of adventure stuff.
It's got a nickname of the Glitter Strip or our Glamour Strip. It's not Las Vegas by any stretch of the imagination, but it's got that feel about it. The people that live there, there's quite a large demographic. That you've got the young trendies with the males with the muscles and the tattoos, and the young girls with the fillers and the tattoos.
It's all glamour.
And then you've got a lot of wealthy retired people down there. So the real estate's pretty expensive on the coast there.
There's just such a variety of things to do.
Yeah, and the amount of restaurants and the quality of the restaurants are fabulous.
Let's get into what there is to do. What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
We're going to start in the middle of the Gold Coast, and it's called Surfers Paradise. And one of the things that I'll just quickly add is it's also a good place to visit because it's got its own international airport and it's very close to Brisbane, so it's easy to get to. But yeah, Surfers Paradise is what I guess most people, when they think of the Gold Coast, that's what they see in their mind, isn't it? When they have the famous avenue, which is called Cavill Avenue, and it's like a pedestrian-only strip. And I recommend that people arrive there and just explore that area. You know, you've got all the quirky sort of wax museums and Ripley's Believe It or Not and all that sort of fun stuff. And as Lyle said, you've got the Glamour sort of strip. And there's about 37, I think, at the moment. They're adding to that kilometres of walkways, and big, wide, 3-metre wide walkways right along the front. If you don't want to be on the beach, you can just walk along and see the stereotype, typical lifesavers with the flags and all that sort of stuff. So it's just
and when you say lifesavers, we're not talking about the candy. You're talking about the lifeguards, is what we would call them?
Yeah, that's what we call them.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're the guides in the red and yellow here. We have, that's their, so they're on the beach and they're patrolling them, and there's always so much happening on that beachfront, isn't there?
And a little bit of the history of the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast was a little bit, well, probably started to develop in the 1960s, so it's not that old. And they used to call the government in those days the White Shoe Brigade. So there was acknowledged there's a fair bit of corruption with developers and that sort of thing. The height of the buildings, which was probably a little bit higher than what would normally be, and they introduced I find it funny, and they still do it today. They have meter maids. Now that started back in 1965, and it was when they introduced parking meters into the strip. Someone come up with the idea that they should have attractive ladies walking around with gold lame bikinis feeding coins into, and it was like a little bit of a lottery. So if the meter maid put money in your meter, you were lucky. So not everybody got it. And actually, funnily enough, there's a Beatles song called Lovely Rita, and it's Lovely Rita Meter Maids, and that's actually where that song came from. So
I had no idea. And when you say meter maids, hang on a second. For me, a meter maid is the woman who gives you the ticket, but you're saying this is the one who keeps you from getting the ticket because she's putting money in random meters.
Yeah, and it must have worked.
But they don't do that today still, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Still today.
Yeah, see, yeah. That gives you a bit of an idea of basically surface paradise as life. Yeah.
But not far from this area is one of the sort of highlights that people go to the Gold Coast for, and it's called the Q1 building, and it's the highest building, and it's not one that was built in the corruption days. It's quite new, and I wouldn't do this myself, but it's actually got Australia's highest external building climb. Now what that means is you go up to the 77th floor and you can go out into the launch platform and you hook yourself up and you're outside on this building, and you climb a 30-metre staircase up to the top, right? And you can see basically 360-degree views of the Gold Coast and the mountains behind, which we're going to tell you about in a minute as well. But if you don't want to do that, I can see the horrified look on your face, Chris.
I was just looking at a picture of the building, and it's high. It's tall.
It's high, right? Yeah. So, but if you don't want to go outside, which I would choose not to, you can just go up to the observation decks, and that's, you pay to go into that, and that's like a great big area which is all glassed in, and you can get the same views, I would imagine. But there's also restaurants and bars and cafes up there, and that's a must-do if you haven't been to the Gold Coast before, to do that, because it's pretty iconic right there on the main Surfers Paradise beach area of the Gold Coast, right?
Yeah, but probably what the Surfers Paradise and that is really known for, it's the beaches. The beaches are beautiful white sand, soft like powder sand. The actual area around those beaches is like a crescent shape. Basically, what that gives is standard surf. You basically, anytime in any weather, you're going to get a decent swell and you're going to be able to surf. And then right along that coast there, which I think there's about 71 kilometres maybe of beaches, and some of the best breaks in the world. It's pretty much world famous for the surfing part of it as well.
And when you say world famous and best breaks in the world, is this for people who are learning to surf, or is this for expert surfers?
Probably a bit of both, but they do have a surf competition like on the circuit at the southern end at Snapper Rocks. That's a nice little spot down the southern end.
Yeah, a lot of our Australian World Surfing Championships are out of the Gold Coast. They come out of that area. Mick Fanning and all these sorts of blokes that held World Championships for a long time. Basically,
Gold Coast.
Yeah, home's got the Gold Coast.
Okay. I couldn't name a single world-class surfer, but all right.
I'm trying to think of one because they've got this massive big surf shop that
was Mick Fanning.
Oh, okay, there you go, Mick Fanning. It's the only one I know too. So that would fill in a pretty big day, just checking out that main area of Surfers Paradise for sure. And we have got a few things that we suggest to do at night, but we thought we might just put them at the end. Is that okay? Like a couple of... Yeah, okay. So day 2... Now, this is another must-do when you're in this area. You actually leave the Gold Coast and head about 40 kilometres up 550 metres. You're going to have to do the conversion, Chris, for the feet.
That's okay.
Right? And that's right behind the Gold Coast to a little mount, like the mount area, which is called Mount Tambourine. It's actually what they call the green behind the Gold Coast. Then you've got the Green Mountain, and it's on what they call the scenic rim. Now, this part of the scenic rim, as I said, is 550 metres, and it's about 8 kilometres long and 4 kilometres wide, and there's little towns dotted up the top of this, and you go from the beach and you head up to...
Basically into the hinterland, which is more rainforest.
Yeah, lush rainforest, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely beautiful.
And so there's quite a few things you can do up there, but to get the lay of the land, you would certainly start in the little town of Tambourine, or North Tambourine as it's called, and it's one of those gorgeous little quirky, crafty sort of areas where they've got the shops called the gallery walk. So, people are making their own pottery and paintings, and they've got little shops where they sell, and there's organic cafes, and just beautiful. At this time of year, the jacarandas are flowering and the agapanthus are flowering. It's just the most scenic spot, isn't it? Yeah. So the jacarandas, if you don't know, I don't know. Do you have jacarandas?
We do have, in my area, we have jacarandas.
Yeah, so they're beautiful.
I do
purple.
know that. I'm not sure that everyone does, though.
Okay, so they're these big trees that have the prettiest purple colour you can ever imagine, these gorgeous flowers, and then the flowers fall and it's like purple little petal rain.
It's even snow.
It is. It lands on the footpath, so that's covering the streets, and it's beautiful. But there are a couple of little walks you can do, and we'd recommend the Rainforest Skywalk, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it's about a 1.5k.
And you're up in the
walk.
trees.
Yeah, it's high through the middle of the canopy.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Not far from there is Lamington National Park, and that's about 160k of just hikes and things, and they're pretty well maintained hiking trails. There's also hot air ballooning there. You can do hot air ballooning. That's about $250 per person, which after doing it in Queenstown, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
But it's like another world.
Yeah, so you've got these great big trees with the big buttresses down the bottom, haven't you? And then they've got the root systems try and grow down, so you're walking through the beautiful rain. You've got the ferns and the tree ferns and the bird life that you can just hear walking through those rainforest walks is amazing. So,
Sure. And what I'm seeing is green.
Exactly,
Everything,
the green behind the gold.
moss everywhere.
Yeah.
Clearly a lot of rain, so
Yes.
I'm bringing up weather-appropriate clothes.
Yeah, yes.
But you're not cold.
You're not.
It doesn't get
Right.
very cold.
No.
There's also horse riding up there.
We haven't done that. And there's lots of waterfalls. There's the Witches Waterfall walk, and there's some lookout areas as well. You can hike to the lookouts where you can actually see back down to the ocean. And there's nothing better than seeing the green rolling hills.
Yeah, it's almost like the hills roll into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And if you're not into the hiking, as I said, there's that beautiful little town area you can explore. But there's also wineries up there and coffee plantations. You can explore those.
Do you have a particular coffee plantation or winery that you recommend?
Cirame Wines is a good one. They do wine tours from the Gold Coast, and you can go and visit Cirame. I think they might more have a cellar door up there. I'm sure they make their wines.
Yeah, and the Cirame, they had to do a lot of blends.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a whole day just exploring up there for sure. And there are day tours if you don't drive. And I'm sure, I didn't actually check, but I'm sure there would be buses that go up to Mount Tambourine because it's so close. And I'm sure locals live up that way and come down as well.
Yeah, I know some people, especially coming from here, from North America, are a little intimidated by the driving on the other side of the road. Although
Tell me about
I
it.
As we are.
I didn't find it terribly difficult in Australia, just because there's just more space there than other places I've driven on the left. I'd say it was probably the easiest place for me as an American to drive on the wrong side of the road for me.
It's not that far, though. That's the thing. So you could easily hire a car.
And I think I only traumatized a couple other motorists doing the left turn and wanting to turn into the right lane instead of the left lane. So they're probably okay by now. So
one of the things in the Gold Coast is they've got like a light rail tram system, which basically goes right up the middle. It's about 20k. It starts at Broadbeach, which is
the southern end,
and finishes at Helensvale, which is
end.
the northern end. And Helensvale is where all the theme parks are. And it's so cheap.
We use that all the time, even though we have a car, to get around the Gold Coast itself.
See, Leanne doesn't like driving on Australian roads, and she's Australian. And it's not because the traffic's a problem. Leanne just hates being in a car.
I don't like driving.
So basically, we jump on the tram that goes right up the middle of Surfers Paradise to these theme parks, and then once you get off there's little shuttle buses that go straight into the theme parks. So you can come in, get your apartment, park your car, you're there for a week, you don't have to use it.
Interesting.
That's what we like. We'll talk a bit about the theme parks, which ones we've got at the end, if you like.
I know, I jumped in there.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
It's a tease. It's okay.
Thank you.
Coming from...
He's the expert.
I know, but coming from the
I
States...
feel like that's what you do just before you do a commercial. So this is probably where I just put the commercial here.
There we go. So we've been along the beach of day 1, day 2. We've done all that beautiful rainforest green, as you were talking about, the green area. And day 3, now this is something that we haven't done for a while, but if you haven't done it here, obviously other places in the world do it too. This is a whale watching cruise. Mm-hmm. And we've got a favourite one. It's called Kokomo Cruises. We like them because they actually guarantee that you see whales, right? If you don't see whales, they'll let you go again or refund. So that's pretty cool. I have to say, just so people know, the Australian whale watching is so good because it's actually called the Whale Highway, and they're humpback whales, and they start obviously down in Antarctica and swim all the way up the east coast of Australia, all the way up to northern Australia, where they have their babies, and then they swim all the way back. And so actually getting them on the way back, I think, is a bit better because they've got the little calves and they are so active. We can actually see them where we are, luckily. But it's nothing like being out on the boat and just seeing them so close, and they're jumping. And so that's a good few hours.
So they would be, I'm trying to do this all backwards in my head. Okay, because in June to July is when they're in North Australia.
They're starting from June, going all the way up and back to... You just can't pick it. Some people start seeing them. I've got family further down the coast, and they say the whales are on their way up. And just now, so what are we now? Not quite
October.
So it's not quite November. You get the old ones still going back.
It's pretty much over, but like there's so many of them.
They used to be on the brink of extinction. That's the thing. And now they're saying like this year there's well over 50,000 of them.
Okay.
So you're gonna see them. It's just one of my favourite things to do, especially when we have visitors come. If you haven't done that before, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the tour that they do on Kokomo, it's about 2.5 hours. But the thing is, you're not just seeing whales; you're seeing sea turtles. You got pods of dolphins going around you. That's one of the things about Australia. It's not only the land animals, but the amount of things in. Fish and that in the ocean, and the waters are so clear. Yeah. You just see them.
Yeah, you can. And after the tour, you've got snacks and all that sort of stuff, and it's a big open sort of boat, so it's easier to see. It's not like you inside, like it's got like canopy. It's really easy viewing from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they do stop so that the patrons can do snorkeling and that sort of thing as well. Yeah. There's reefs down there. They're not as good as the Great Barrier Reef, but they're still pretty enticing, so you can do that. And as far as the snorkeling is concerned, is that the colour of the corals are always at the top of the water anyways. Yeah, it's magnificent, really good.
I'm going to talk about snorkeling in a moment.
Oh, I think that's another tease. That's another tease.
Are we already another commercial break? Boy, that's
I should have worked for commercial TV. Sorry.
And so where you leave to go out to the whale watching is from Southport Marina, and when you come back in, I'd recommend you spend some time there because it's where the Southport Yacht Club is. Yeah. It's a massive big marina. It's got super yachts. It's actually got the biggest floating berth for Australia. They can take yachts up to 130 metres there. If you're into that sort of looking at boats and that sort of thing, apparently we wandered around there, found there's a nice little pub there to have lunch.
Yeah, there was a surf club. There's a pub there. Yeah, there's the
yacht
club. Yeah, that's
so it's a nice little marina area to explore as well.
Yeah, and just with those Kokomo cruises too, they do sunset cruises as well.
If you're not doing the whales, yeah, that is true. If it's out of season though, if you want to do a cruise, they do offer. You said sunset, but they do canal cruises too. Like the Gold Coast is built on a lot of canals, and I know that's nothing unique, but it is a nice thing to do. I just love being out on the water. It gives you a different view and perspective.
Yeah, but as I said earlier, the real estate on the Gold Coast on the water is pretty expensive. So to do those canal cruises, to look at the beautiful mansions there, it's a bit special.
And you say the canals. I'm looking at a map of the Gold Coast, and it is quite extensive. If you told me that these were streets, and regular blocks and things like that, I would believe you. But it's quite an extensive set of canals, it looks like.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think that's very desirable, as Lyle was saying, to live on the canals.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Konnichiwa, I'm Yuki, a tour leader with Explore. Who knew that hidden among Tokyo's towering skyscrapers was a peaceful tea house surrounded by ancient trees and serene ponds? Actually, I knew. It was my mother's secret sanctuary. Not everyone knows about Tokyo's Hamarikyu Gardens. Arigatou gozaimasu. But you will if you explore. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel, explore.
So it's been a busy few days.
Yeah. Yep.
But day 4, now this is one of my favourite things. I always say that. But what I would do is then head down, either hop on the G-Link, that's called, the tram.
The light rail. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or drive down to the southern end, which we call Coolangatta. Now, Coolangatta is actually on the Queensland, New South Wales border. So you can be on one side of the street and you're in Queensland, and on the other side of the street you're in New South Wales, which is actually then called Tweed Heads. But the problem with that is New South Wales has daylight savings time and Queensland doesn't.
I did not realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other problem was obviously when COVID was in, New South Wales had different restrictions than what Queensland did.
And they couldn't come into Queensland, and yet they lived on one side of the road and worked on the other.
Gosh.
I know.
It was horrific.
That was horrific. But it is quite fun being in that, one side of the street is the other. So this is Coolangatta, and that's where we were talking about earlier, the Snapper Rocks. And so when you're down this way, it's certainly worth. It's not called Snapper Rocks. It's actually Rainbow Bay. So there's Rainbow Bay, which goes around to Snapper Rocks. There's this really iconic old wooden surf club there. It's just typically Australian. You've got the veranda outside and the cold beer on the veranda overlooking the palm trees and the surf break there. We always go there. Every time we go to the Gold Coast, we always head to that surf club.
Yeah.
Just because it's so beautiful. And then around the headland is, if you like walking, is to hit the Tweed River, and there's a lovely walkway all the way along the Tweed River. And once again, there's people scuba diving and snorkeling in there, but it's a beautiful view across the Tweed River over to Tweed Heads, so that's worth exploring, having a look around there. But the other thing that's down this way, which is so amazing, is Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, and it's not quite Australia Zoo, but it has lots of Australian wildlife there, from echidnas to wombats to wallabies, Tasmanian devils, like all this. They have all those there, and it's like this big, 11 hectare sort of park area, and there's a little train that gets you around, and play areas and cafes and things. But what it's most famous for is the lorikeet feeding. Now, you know what a lorikeet is, the rainbow lorikeets? They are the prettiest birds you'll ever see. And they're cheeky and they're noisy. And they've been doing these feedings for 80 years. You actually don't have to pay to go into the park to see this. And they do it every morning about 8:30 and then in the afternoon about 4.
Yeah.
And they're wild birds, and they just fly in because they know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a bit of the history on that. The guy that owned the property originally was a beekeeper and sold flowers commercially. And he came up with the idea of feeding the lorikeets to stop them getting into his flowers and his honey. So that's how it started. Yeah. And I just think that's so clever.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it ever since.
Yeah.
So, as Leanne says, the wild birds just come in and they get fed. And
they land on your hands and they land on your head. You really need to see it. It's
And what's happened?
Fabulous.
And what's happened from there is they've actually now got an animal hospital there, so that they treat all sorts of animals, whether it be kangaroos or wallabies that are hit on the roads and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's similar to Australia Zoo that way. All the natural animals that are injured get taken to these places where they've got vets there to help them.
Yeah, so you can do like breakfast with the koalas, all those sort of fun things to do. It's actually really nice cuddling a koala. Yes.
And interestingly, Queensland's the only place you can do it. In New South Wales, they've banned you from actually holding the koalas.
Probably for good reason.
Maybe not. But yeah, the big thing is to get the photo with the koala. Obviously, you've got wallabies, kangaroos. There's also a reptile area there where your kids can have their first encounter with a snake, if that's what you like.
But we do have some really unique bird life and wildlife, and you can see a lot of it here. So they don't have the overseas animals; they just have like the Australian, the cockatoos, and all the good stuff. But it's definitely
And there is a crocodile.
just one.
Just one.
Lyle's favourite animal, Lyle
The
crocodile.
big boss. The big boss, I think they call it.
Do they?
Yeah, but he's been there a while.
Yeah, so that's a really fun thing to do.
That's going to take you probably 3 or 4 hours.
Oh yeah, after you've been.
Okay.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to see some of those? I think wombats are my favourite animal. I just love them. So.
And what's unique
Well, they're cute.
about...
They're cute as. They just look so cute. But they do, I know, Chris would know this. He's been travel podcasting for 18 years. But wombats are the only animal that do cube-shaped poo.
I actually had heard that, yes.
See? Yeah.
It has come up on the podcast before.
I know.
So.
But actually, I know that because I listened to that podcast episode. It was on Tasmania.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
Yes, and the gentleman on that, he was worked for National Geographic, and I think.
Yep,
and
yep.
he did a great job telling you all about Tasmania. Yeah, made me want to go back there as well. Yeah, cube-shaped poo. Yeah. All right, let's move on.
I'm so surprised you knew that, Chris.
No, I knew he knew it. I listened to it. So day 5. Now, stick with me here, Chris and Lyle, because it's probably not what the boys like to do, but no trip to the Gold Coast would be complete without going to Queensland or biggest shopping centre called Pacific Fair. Now, I'm not a shopper either, and I don't really always want to go shopping, but this shopping centre is, and they're always doing it up. It has the most beautiful outdoor areas where you don't even know you're in a shopping centre. It's got like a food court, like Asian food sort of areas, and they have a stage in the middle. There's always performers on, and you can go up the stairs and it's like you're in a tropical sort of restaurant, a tiki bar sort of thing as well. And it's just a really nice, relaxed shopping centre to walk around. And most people want to buy something to take home. It's certainly worth a visit to there, don't you reckon?
And Chris, like most boys do like doing, just across the road is the casino.
You don't. You're not a casino.
No, I'm too tight with my money to gamble. But
I have too many math classes to enjoy a casino. But
we don't go to gamble.
But they do have fabulous shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
We have been, we've been to some great shows.
Yeah,
there.
they do put on fabulous shows at the casino. But so Pacific Fair, it's right. Once again, you get off the tram, and it's half a block away, and you can explore that, and then it's on the area that what we call Broad Beach, and I think, if I haven't said this already, it's probably my favourite part of the
Yeah,
Gold
I'll put
Coast.
my hand up for that too. I reckon Broad Beach is our favourite.
The sort of the ocean front there, the range of restaurants and cafes there, and there's always something happening. They've either got some handmade markets, or they've got a music festival, or it's just got a great atmosphere, that Broad Beach Park. And it also has the Currawa Surf Club. Now, this describes Australian surf clubs. Each beach basically has lifesavers that look after it, and they have what we call a club. Now, they're not just like a wooden sort of structure. They're a full-on restaurant, bar sort of area, and they're always built on the best real estate. So this Currawa Surf Club is literally on the beach. It's worth going there for your lunch and just taking in the views. They've got the coastal walks outside the path, so everybody's walking past, and then you've got a little bit of sand dune and the beach. The views are beautiful, especially with a nice cold Aussie beer.
Yeah, just to explain, because they're a charity service industry, the Queensland government leases the land to them for nothing, right? So they're not paying rent, that sort of thing, and they get to pick the best places, and then they've also allowed to have what we call gaming machines, poker machines, slot machines in an area, and they can have up to about, I think it's 280. That's why they can build these enormous modern facilities, and as some of that money obviously goes to help the club, the actual lifesavers, and the rest of it goes to the social members side of it,
and also the community members. They give back to the community, and so they've got all the surf boats, all their gear, all their training, and that sort of stuff. So,
so they're pretty impressive buildings, and they're right along the coast there.
But that's one of my favourite. That one there at Broad Beach, the Currawa Surf Club.
So I describe Broad Beach as maybe the sophisticated part of the Gold Coast, because the choice of restaurants is just amazing.
I'm getting a Miami Beach with an Australian accent. But
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, just up from Board Beach, there is Miami Beach.
Yeah, we do.
well,
have
there
one.
you go.
Yeah. So you're right on.
Yeah. So that's a great day to spend at that end of the Gold Coast. Yeah, but yeah, definitely check out Pacific Fair. We always go there and have a look, maybe have lunch or something. There's also got like big cinema complexes and stuff like that. If you do want to go to the movies, that sort of thing, that's where you'd go. And then day 6, we're going to take you back out on the water. It's a pretty full-on day. It's a long day, but you can actually do a day trip from the Gold Coast to Moreton Island, which is we can see Moreton Island from here.
From here meaning Brisbane, so it's further north
From
past
here,
Brisbane.
It's probably off Brisbane, where we are at the Sunshine Coast. So I can look south and see it, and from the Gold Coast, you'd look north. So it's a triangle, probably.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the shipping channel to go into
Brisbane
comes past, it goes through the Sunshine Coast, past our place. Then you go into Brisbane, and
it runs past the Moreton Island, is what I'm saying.
Goes past Moreton Island.
Yeah.
So Moreton Island's, the ship's going between Moreton Island and us.
Brisbane and Gold
the
Coast.
mainland,
Yeah.
And it's not far, really.
Yeah. So you can see it, is what I'm saying. But it's a full-on day. And the reason you'd probably, if you love water and obviously the checking out the different stuff to do off the Gold Coast is this is a fabulous area because what they've done over the years, I think they started in the 60s, is they started sinking old ships. And there's about 15 sunk there now. They're called the Tangalooma wrecks.
So the resort is called Tangalooma Resort.
Yeah, so that's on Moreton Island, that's right. And so you take the ship over and you hop off at Tangalooma Resort, and it's maybe a 10-minute walk up the beach, or you can get the boat, and you would go snorkeling. Now, because they've been there quite so long, they're actually sunk to make a bit of a reef, but also a safe haven for boats to shelter there. But now there's over 100 different fish species, and there's coral growing on it. So it's got this like shipwreck feel about it. But with the coral and the fish, and we've scuba dived there, and we saw hammerhead sharks.
Yeah,
But you can basically walk off the sand, and it's not like you're right out in the middle of the ocean. So you can take a boat tour around, but you can actually swim in from the beach and snorkel around here. It's as close as you're going to get to the Great Barrier Reef by not going any further north. It's got that sort of that feel about So if you look at it, Google it, you'll see generally they've got the aerial shots of the wrecks under the water. That's definitely worth doing, isn't it? Whether you're a scuba diver or a snorkeler. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's your favourite thing to do there?
They actually do dolphin feeding, and once again, they're wild dolphins, like the lorikeets, and they've been fed for so long that they swim right into shore.
Just take little fish out of your hand.
Yeah, so you can hold it out and they come and take a fish out of your hand. And I did that. I've got the photo. I've got the biggest grin on my face. It's just it's so cool because dolphins, they're just adorable, right? And they're not being coerced or anything. They just know if I turn up at whatever time it is, they have a couple of times a day and they get fed. And
and just to clarify, that when you do that...
it's organised and structured.
It's very structured, and you're not allowed to have anything on your hands. You're not allowed to have sunscreen on, and it's normally about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's not so bad. They're very careful of how it's
they protect the dolphins.
And there's only so many people on the beach and that sort of thing.
But I did like that. Like doing the tour to Tangalooma, lunch is included. It's a full day out. And if you want to, there's a couple of things you can do too. I can see them from our window, which is incredible, but they've got sand dunes, like quite big sand dunes. We haven't done this. My eldest son has. And you can toboggan down the sand dunes. That doesn't appeal to me, but I know it would to some people.
But they've got the quad bikes and all that sort of stuff as well.
And the transparent bottom kayaks and things.
Yeah. That's for the sharks so they can see what they're going to eat.
Yeah, so they're the bottom.
That's for them, yeah.
But I definitely, if you're game enough to try the snorkeling there is amazing. Yeah. You're going to be exhausted by the time you get home though. We always find like days out doing the snorkeling or the scuba diving is water, you're pretty tired.
And just the other thing too about all these water things that you can do, the temperature of the water up here, probably in winters, probably about 18 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
And it gets up to about, in the middle of summer, to about 26 degrees Celsius. I'm assuming that's about 70-something degrees, maybe 80 degrees.
Almost 80 degrees Fahrenheit, yeah.
So it's really nice.
And there's really very little chill factor.
And being this far south, you don't have to worry about, as you do further north, the stingers.
The box jellyfish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we don't get any of that.
No, not down here. It's a good spot for snorkeling safely. Yeah. And then we come to day 7, and Look, for me, my personality, I would probably like a nice relaxing day. And there's so many different spa sort of things you can do at the Gold Coast, depending on which area you're staying in and what hotel they could offer that. I'd probably find a little spot on the beach and have a swim because the water's beautiful and the surf's beautiful. But there are some other things. That's what I would do, but we might give you a couple of other things that you could do if you've only got the week and you want to fit everything in. As Lyle mentioned before, the Gold Coast is home of Australia's best theme parks. So we've got Movie World, Dream World, and
Wet and Wild. They're in Helensvale.
And they're all across the road from each other.
Yeah, so that's the one where you can catch the light rail and then just get the shuttle bus to the theme parks.
And you get a park pass to go to all of them. And
you can get 4-day park pass and a 3-day park pass and a single-day park pass.
I've been to all of them and I love them. And I've been with kids and I've been on my own and I do find them fun, especially Wet and Wild. That's a lot of fun.
Well, Wet and Wild's basically just, what do you call them?
Giant water slides.
Water slides and that sort of thing.
Floating around on a tube.
I love a good water slide.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And
I used to.
Movie World obviously has like the Blues Brothers themes and the band.
And I see that's Warner Brothers Movie World.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. And Dream World is more the...
I assume that's sort of sleeper Dream World, or...
No. But Dreamworld's Aslands, and it's more the rides and that
the
sort
roller
of thing.
coasters.
And they have a tiger show, and they've got the koalas as well, the wallaby, but it's mainly
the rides.
Yeah, the big dippers and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, the roller coasters.
Yeah,
things that'll spin you and put you upside down and things like that. Okay.
Yes.
And the other thing that the Gold Coast does have quite often, it's a big sporting area. They've got their own sort of football team, or our sort of football, which is our...
Aussie rules.
Yeah, they have so there's quite a lot of sporting events that go on. We're actually going back to the Gold Coast in a couple of weeks, and it's called the Gold Coast 500, and it's
the V8 supercars.
Yeah, and it's a street circuit. So they close off all the main streets there in Surfers Paradise, and these cars race around. Now, we don't go for the V8 supercars. We go for the race before, which is the Porsche Carrera Cup. And that's because Lyle's godson is the current Australian Porsche Carrera Cup champion, and he's racing there, and it's one of the only times we get to see him.
Yeah, because all this year he's basically been
based in
Europe.
So that's but just the hype that goes with this event, you can imagine, like it's fast cars and there's loud music and it's a street circuit and it's
full on.
It is full on, yeah. The other thing, there's a big convention centre down near the casino, so there's often whatever's going on, there's often things that you can go and see at the convention centre as well.
And when you talk about the first one, the V Super 8, and it's a course through town.
Yes.
It's not a race course.
No, they close off the streets.
Long Beach here in the U.S. Is that also true with the Porsche, or is that in a...
Yep.
Same
racetrack.
Yeah.
And they just race earlier or later on the same day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not all the races for those events are street races. Most of them are on tracks, but that's why it's so popular, because they're in their high-rise apartments and they're overlooking the racetrack, and it's just they've got this real there's DJs playing, and it's just got this real party atmosphere.
So if I'm not interested in the racing, I might not want to come when it's there because the prices are probably going to go up a bit.
Maybe, but this is right in Surfers, so if we've got friends that live there and they're not affected at all, obviously they're not paying for accommodation, but even like where we're talking about Broadbeach, even further a bit south, they've got other things going on, they're not affected. But yes, probably that weekend, because it's only on a weekend, you might steer clear for visiting.
And that last year when we were there in the Surface, which is right in Surface, is the car racing, and in Broadbeach where we were staying, which was only about a 6-minute tram ride, there was the Groundwater Country Music Festival on the same weekend, and there was just country music everywhere, which was it was a great weekend. Yeah.
So so there's all sorts of things to do, but there's a few other things that we'd like to throw in there. I was going to say chuck in there. That's probably not the best expression. The Gold Coast has a reputation for nightlife, and there's a couple of really unique sort of cabaret shows that are certainly worth seeing. It's just which day you want to put them on, whether you have a relaxing day and put it on. So the first one, which we've been to a couple of times, which is a whole lot of fun, is called Dracula's. It's next to the casino, but right across the road from Pacific Shopping Fair, like we were talking about before at the Broadbeach. It's like this big castle, and everybody in the show, not even in the show, the host and everything, they're all
The staff, yeah.
They're all in theme.
And it's vampire theme.
Yes, of course. And and you start the night by hopping on a little haunted train ride.
Yeah, ghost train.
Which sort of takes you, and there's things coming out and scaring you, and then you end up, it's like a theatre restaurant, and you end up in your chair eventually, and the show is fabulous. And it's not really a story. They've just got eclectic acts. You've got your folk singers, you've got glow-in-the-dark performers, you've got magicians, you've got rock bands.
You've got aerial performers, you've got comedians. I reckon it goes for about 2.5 hours, and it's just mind-blowing. And it's as cheap as chips, and it's a 3-course meal, and even your dessert comes out in a chocolate coffin. And the food was
actually, it's like you eat the chocolate coffin. You just it's on your plate. Like this.
I come from the hospitality industry, and the way they get the meals out and the quality of the meals is just outstanding. Yeah. And it's just a really good night. I love going down every time we go.
It's a lot of fun, and it changes all the time too. So you don't know. Uh-huh. Yeah, not all the time. Obviously, they have a run, and then they get a whole lot of new artists in or different acts. And
then the other place is called the Outback Spectacular.
Yeah, and this is really, if you're coming from anywhere that's not Australia, this is true blue Aussie. And it's in an arena. Yeah,
it's actually down near where the theme parks are. The way they've got it set up. Yeah, again,
this does tell a story, though.
Yeah, this does tell
It tells a story about farming in the outback, through the drought. They've got farmers on horseback. Everyone gets a cowboy hat, don't they?
A stockman's
hat. And you're sitting in the arena and you're having your Aussie meal and you're watching this story. And I saw it quite a few years ago, and I think it's even upgraded since then, because now they've got, as part of it, obviously there's technology and light shows and things that go with it as well. So it's a whole immersive Aussie outback experience. So fabulous night out on the Gold Coast, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good way.
And also dinner theatre is my impression.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a 3-course dinner, and it's basically, I think the choices are fillet steak and roast chicken and that sort of stuff. And good. But the light shows are just unbelievable. The way they're able to make you feel like you're in a drought area and you're on the farm. And of course, the horse riders.
I was going to say the horse riders impress me.
Yeah, they're stunt riders.
Yeah.
So it's, but it's I think for anybody that coming from overseas, I think it really gives a good impression of how
harsh the outback can be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's great.
But well worth.
My uncle, who owned a cattle station for a while during a drought in Queensland, told a few stories about that experience.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh. Yeah, pretty tough. They got to be tough. He must be a tough guy. Something else you could do is you could hop on a train, and within sort of 45 minutes you're in Brisbane, the capital city of Queensland. We love going to Brisbane as well. If you have a bit more time than a week, you certainly would go in and look on the Brisbane River there, the city, the Botanic Gardens, the South Bank area.
They call it the River City.
There's so much to see.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Seriously beautiful.
Yeah. But you could easily do that as a day trip as well. And another day trip you can actually do as a tour, or if you've got a car, it's only maybe an hour and a half max down to the famous Byron Bay. A lot of people have heard of Byron Bay because there's a lot of movie actors live there, like Chris Hemsworth, and Zac Efron was there for a while, I think. Yeah. And it's
Matt Damon, I think, got a place there.
And it's just this beautiful little coastal area, but it's got a lighthouse walk, so there's a lovely hike around there, and it's actually Australia's most eastern point. So that's another day trip, and there's some more national parks and hikes in that area as well.
You've got Kingscliff, not even as far as that, and Kingscliff's is beautiful too on the New South Wales.
A whole lot of stuff you could do. But what we'd like to do now, though, is tell you some of the really nice restaurants that we've found. Obviously, there's a whole lot of them, but we've got a few favourites, haven't we? Yeah.
I'm going to start with my favourite.
That'll be the Yokoya. No.
Oh. Actually, I forgot about the Yokoya. There's a place called Mama San's, and it's basically at Broadbeach.
Asian fusion, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And seriously, I'll give you, and they've got share plates and that sort of thing, and they won
the wine list of the year or something.
Yeah, the last year, which was last year we were there. Yeah. So they've got a fabulous wine list, which is obviously very important.
But we'll be going back there when we go down in a couple of weeks. We're going straight back to Mama San's.
Ocean trout sashimi with black and chili dressing. And then you've got crab slaw, which is with shredded mixed cabbage with balsamic coriander, and wasabi mayo.
Tell them about that duck one. That's the one I love, the duck pancakes.
Duck pancakes with sweet hoisin, cucumber, and shallot.
Yeah, that's one of my favourites.
You've got...
So there's a whole lot of different size sharing places.
Moreton Bay. Have you heard of Moreton Bay bugs, Chris?
I have not heard of Moreton Bay bugs.
Moreton Bay bugs are like a...
well, that's Moreton Bay right out there.
Yeah, Moreton Bay is
They're
just
like
out
a
here.
small-
I assume it's like a lobster.
Yeah,
But smaller.
But it's a sweeter meat.
Yeah.
It's
They
sweeter meat.
specialise in that, don't they?
Yeah, they've got Moreton Bay
We
bugs.
probably don't have to do the whole menu.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway,
Just for time here.
okay, fair enough. But yeah, so the menu's fabulous. There's a lot of share plates. As Leanne said, there's a restaurant called Koya, and that's at the Langham Hotel, and that's a seafood buffet.
Yeah, every sort of oyster you want. You get all the seafood as much as you want. We couldn't get enough of that, and it's fresh. That was amazing. It's a bit more expensive, 119, I think, per person. But
You should know that.
yeah, I should know that. We thought it was a bit more than that.
We thought it was 199, and we said, yeah, we'll go. And then when we came out, and it was absolutely magnificent. And it was about $80 cheaper than we thought. And what we thought he said was 190, it was 119.
Yeah, but they've got
Well, and at the time we're recording this,
Yes.
119 Australian is about 76 US.
That'd be-
So
that'd
there's
be
the US discount here as people
the
are
US
talking.
discount.
Yeah.
And then there's the hidden kitchen, which is down Broadbeach, which once again you go through this little cafe, and then out the back there's this big courtyard, and it's Asian fusion again, and it's quite a reasonable price, isn't it?
Yeah, that's relatively cheap. But if using the American dollar,
Discount,
everything's going to be cheap.
Yeah, and as we said, we certainly recommend the surf clubs. There's every little beach place has its own surf club, so all the way up, and they have the traditional, the fish and chips and the steaks,
And they're all reasonably priced.
yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. Because they're making money, they subsidise those sorts of the meals for families, and not subsidise so much, but they don't charge too much money for them.
No.
And obviously Australia is known for its seafood.
Right.
They're on the coast, so you'd be crazy if you like seafood not to try it.
I think one of the reasons why the food's so good, especially in the Gold Coast, is because of the concentration of restaurants. It has to be good. If you're going to succeed, it has to be good. And because there's just restaurants everywhere.
And the casino has a lot of pretty high high-end restaurants as
Yeah,
well.
they've got Italian, Japanese, they've got a roof bar, so the food at the casino is pretty damn good as well.
Yeah. And you can go to the casino without going anywhere near the gambling areas.
Sure, there's a really good piano bar that operates 7 nights a week. If we go there, we will often go there before we're going to the Dracula's. We'll call into the casino at the piano bar. And the quality of the artists are
Really
probably
good.
the best in Australia.
Yeah.
And that costs you nothing,
But one thing
apart from the drinks.
to really be
Apart from the drinks, yeah.
aware of, you, though, before I think we've come to the end of our 7-day itinerary, really, is you did mention before that if you weren't into motorsports, that's probably not the weekend to go. But this is something that the guidebooks won't tell you, probably. You want to avoid the Gold Coast, especially the Surfers Paradise area. There's 2 weeks in November, and I think you would call it spring break, maybe, with schoolies. And it's basically all the kids that have finished their high school studies, so year 12, they're 17, 18 years old. They all converge on the Gold Coast, the Surfers Paradise area, that one area, for schoolies. And they have events on, and they have police, and they have medical, and they have you support people, and you've got to pay to get into the events and stuff. It's run properly.
So unless I'm that age and that's the scene I'm looking for, probably not my week.
You don't want to go there, no. In fact, if you did, they have a name. Instead of a schoolie, you'd be called a toolie. So you don't want to go there. And
I didn't know she was going to say that.
but you can get caught up, and there's a lot of kids drinking that don't know, that shouldn't be drinking, and it can get a bit...
But just on experience.
Yeah. And because Queensland schools finish a week earlier, so they go first, and then the New South Wales schools, they come up for the week. So there's those 2 weeks that you certainly do not want to go to the Gold Coast. Yeah, that would be definitely...
Got it. Good to know.
Yes. It's also...
Excellent.
Good spot that you can, if you're not long in Australia, you can, as I said, hop on the plane. There's a really good airport that goes all over the rest of Australia as well.
Yeah, I mean, we do these in 1 week itinerary chunks, but it doesn't mean you can't combine this with one of the many other episodes we have done, as long as you're flying all the way to Australia, depending on where your starting point is. I certainly recommend people...
Tasmanian episode and head down there. It's one of our favourite places in Australia too.
Excellent.
And you can fly to New Zealand out of the Gold Coast. And we've just come back from there.
Excellent. Are we ready to do some of our wrap-up questions here?
Sure. Let's go.
You know what's coming here. I'm standing in the prettiest spot on the Gold Coast. Where am I standing at, and what am I looking at?
If I was brave, I'd be up the Q1 on the outside of that platform. But I'm going to say I'm standing at one of the lookouts on Tambourine Mountain, just looking back down over the lush green hills, back down to the sea, for sure.
I thought you might be okay.
Yeah.
One thing that makes you laugh and say only in the Gold Coast.
Meet a maids.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised that is a today thing, not just a 1950s or 60s thing or something.
The Beatles must have liked it.
Obviously. And then if you had to summarize the region in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Oh, yeah, you got me with that one. It would have to be surf, obviously, glamour, and probably...
Fun.
Yeah. It's
Excellent.
a lot of fun.
Our guests again are Leanne and Lyle McCabe, and we forgot to mention your website because at the beginning here, but you're from beachtravelwine.com, which would have made your comment about you'd have to have wine be a lot more obvious. If we wanted to send people to the best post on the Gold Coast at beachtravelwine.com, where are we going to send people?
You would go to Beach Travel Wine, our podcast page, and episode 39. We've done our own episode on it, but I've also done a blog post on the Gold Coast there. Yeah, check that out.
Excellent. And you are at how many episodes now for your podcast?
I've just recorded number 75. I know that doesn't sound much compared to 800 odd, but...
Most podcasts end by 10.
There we go.
75 is an accomplishment. Don't sell
and these are all
yourself short.
places we've been to as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for coming back on the show and talking to us about your love for the Gold Coast.
You're welcome. And we'll hopefully talk again soon.
Thanks, Chris.
A special thanks to the patrons of this show who help support Amateur Traveler with their donations. If you're interested in becoming a patron of the show and supporting this endeavor, feel free to learn more by going to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. I got feedback from the show recently, and I don't remember where I got it from, so I can't find who I got it from. I apologize, but it was useful feedback, so even though I'm embarrassed to read it without the person's name who sent it, I did want to read it. And it's feedback on the older episode we did on Thailand on Kanchanaburi. It says, "Hey Chris, I'm just messaging you as I follow your podcast, which has been super helpful for my travels. I just wanted to let you know that one of the elephant sanctuaries that you recommended in your Kanchanaburi episode is not actually very ethical, and elephants are kept in cages when there are no tourists around. Unfortunately, this is very common in Thailand for places to say they are sanctuaries, but don't really let their elephants roam free. I'm asking you to please edit your podcast to not recommend it any further." And there's an article here that I'll include the link in the show notes to an article on The Guardian about this. This lists some conservation-approved sanctuaries. The one in Chiang Mai I have experienced for myself to be the highest care and free-range elephants. And again, I apologize for not having the name right here. It's one of the reasons I ask people if you have any comments to send me an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, because this ends up in my email as I get ready to process this. And if it doesn't end up on my email, I have to remember to copy all the right information and send it to myself. But in terms of editing episodes, I don't ever edit episodes. I just honestly don't have time. I can't go back and edit older episodes. I may not even have the source for episodes anymore to go back and edit them. And honestly, with a full-time job and 2 podcasts that I'm doing in the evenings, there's just no time to go back and edit anything older. But I do want to correct things, and so I will put this information in this episode. There are still some spots in the Amateur Traveler trip to Morocco next April in 2024. If you're interested, go to amateurtraveler.com/trips. And with that, we're going to end this episode of The Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.